Learning champions that aren't played as much in meta can be one of the easiest ways to climb fast. Playing a niche champion is one thing, but if they're also secretly OP, you're going to absolutely stomp games. It can become quite easy playing meta matchups because you're generally understanding of the limits of those champions. Even if they're broken, you realize that due to playing the matchup so often and can shift how you play accordingly. Now, if you're playing a secret OP champion that the enemy has never laned against, this notion goes out the window. The enemy won't have a clue as to what they should expect, which will provide you with so many more windows of opportunity to take over the game. This is what we'll be setting you guys up with in today's video. 10 secret OP champions that are stupidly broken, but most players don't know about it. But before we get into it, be sure to check out SkillCapped if you want to truly get better at League of Legends. We're the only service that offers a money-back guarantee if you don't climb at least 5 divisions while actively using our service. We do this because our service really does work, and if it doesn't work for you, you shouldn't pay. Learn more at the end of this video or click the link in the description below. It's no secret how disgusting LeBlanc mid has been with the static Shiv Rush, but what if we told you she's actually even more lethal as a top laner? The most played matchup for LeBlanc up in the top lane is Aatrox, and she's currently winning over 54% of the time against him. LeBlanc is also seeing great success into other meta melee champs like Darius and Renekton. What's working really well on LeBlanc top lane right now is running Ignite with Teleport as your summoner spells and bullying the living daylight out of melee champs. You've already got amazing mobility from W, which is basically a flash in and of itself, so by running the Ignite Teleport, you got absolute lane dominance. Another huge perk to LeBlanc top lane is that her gank assist is absurd. Since top lane is a much longer lane than mid, the gank assist of LeBlanc top is even better than mid lane, and if you can keep a freeze on your side of the lane, it's easy pickings all day long for your jungler. On a lane bully like LeBlanc, if you can really master your wave control, the champ just becomes unfair, so our Master in Minutes course on wave control is a great resource to help you out. The core build to run is a static Shiv Rush into Night Harvester 2nd and Lich Bane 3rd. Fleet Footwork is the keystone rune with Presence of Mind, Alacrity, and Coup de Grace. Optimal secondaries are Magical Footwear and Biscuits. Much more commonly played in the jungle, but winning way more as a top laner in this meta is Rammus. Most notably, solo queue legend The Boss has been a bit of a Rammus top lane connoisseur, and it's for good reason. Rammus just loves playing into these AD fighters, as he can rush a Thornmail and completely nullify their damage threat. A few matchups to where Rammus top lane has a positive win rate against include Yone, Aatrox, Renekton, Tryndamere, Fiora, Yasuo, and Irelia. It's really only these AP bruisers that give the champion issues, which makes complete sense as the Thornmail rush is very useless against them. For this reason, if you just ban out Mordekaiser, then you're in pretty good shape. It's key to note that the ability max for Rammus top lane is much different than that of jungle. Most jungle Rammus players max Q out first, but for top lane, you want to be maxing W. Extra points in W helps you out way more in those skirmishes, while having a lower cooldown on Q early on doesn't really matter for top lane Rammus. You actually don't want to max Q out until last, as it's W first, E second, and Q third. The build for Rammus top lane is going to look like a Thornmail Rush, Even Shroud second, and Gargoyle Stoneplate third. Aftershock's the keystone rune with Demolish, Conditioning, and Overgrowth. The best secondaries are Magical Footwear and Minion Dematerializer. A champion who's got some sneaky good power in the jungle but is not played in the role nearly as much as he should be is Rumble. Rumble's clear is pretty solid. Skirmish power is not to be undermined, and his level 6 ganks are some of the best for any jungler. This can really play to your advantage because the enemy team will likely never have played against a Rumble jungle all season long, and even if they're not pushing up in lane, a good Rumble ult can completely block any escape route. There have actually been a bunch of pros from EU and Korea picking up Rumble jungle over the past patch and winning a ton with it. The build they've been running revolves around a Night Harvester Rush into Demonic Embrace 2nd and Zanya's 3rd. Rune Page consists of First Strike with Magical Footwear, Futures Market, and Cosmic Insight. Best secondaries are Cheap Shot and Ultimate Hunter. If you're currently gold or below, there's one secret OP jungler in specific we would highly recommend you spam, and it's Mordekaiser. The champion is just so simple to execute, but very rewarding at the same time. Mordekaiser spikes super hard once he gets to that level 6, so you want to be full clearing in most games unless there's a very free gank angle. At level 6, when you've got your ultimate, if the enemy even tries to duel you, it's a free kill every single time. This will happen quite often because players just don't know what to expect out of Mord jungle and will try to fight you anyways. Even if the enemy doesn't directly engage on you, if they move up too far, it's pretty easy for you to run them down by popping Ghost. And yes, it is Ghost instead of Flash on the Mord jungle. The core build to run is a Rylai's Rush into Jaksho 2nd and Demonic Embrace 3rd. Conqueror is the keystone rune, followed by Triumph, Tenacity, and Last Stand, while Conditioning and Overgrowth are the optimal secondaries. For a more in-depth look at Mordekaiser jungle, we have a dedicated course for him on our website called The Easiest Way to Climb Ranks, so definitely check it out if you're going to pick him up. We currently have Camille rated as one of the most OP top laners for solo queue, but what if we told you she's even more broken as a mid laner? The trading power of Camille mid into all of these squishy mid lane champs is absolutely incredible. What you want to do is really try to push for that level 2 advantage. If you can hit 2 before the enemy and they are not backed off, you can chunk them for at least half their health right away. The stun from E, damage from Q, and shield from passive makes it nearly impossible for a squishy mid to beat you in a trade at level 2. Especially if they are a spell-reliant champ, your passive shield can just eat up that damage and have you winning the trade without a scratch. It will definitely take you a bunch of games to learn the limits of Camille's E when playing in mid lane, but once you've got it down, she becomes extremely powerful. The only matchup in meta that Camille mid has a negative win rate against is Lissandra. This makes a lot of sense due to Lissandra's point-and-click lockdown, which hinders Camille's ability to stick onto her. Camille mid is winning over 54% of the time into Zed, Yasuo, Yone, Katarina, and Sylas, who are all very common solo queue champs. The build to run is a Trinity Force Rush into Ravenous Hydra 2nd and Sterix Gage 3rd. Since you'll be playing into squishy mids and are looking for a bit more burst power in that case, running Press the Attack instead of Grasp or Conqueror is super good. Our second mid lane pick is one who we've seen pulled out a bit in the past but has never become super popular, being Zac. Zac mid is a complete monster in melee mid lane matchups, as he's running laps around popular champs like Zed, Yone, Yasuo, and Katarina. Cassiopeia is one of the few matchups that Zac mid has issues with due to her ability to hard counter Zac's dive. The trade pattern you're going to want to get used to when playing Zac mid revolves around landing your Q first, then using E so that you can hit the guaranteed knockup. Unless you're super far ahead or your jungler is ganking for you, there's no point in leading with E since it's not guaranteed to hit. If you Q first and have the enemy CC'd, it's literally impossible to miss your E. It's important to note that for mid lane Zac, you want to be maxing your W out first instead of E. The consistent DPS power of W is what makes Zac so strong in the solo lane, so maxing it first, followed by E second and Q last is what you want to do. The build for Zac mid is going to look like a Sunfire Aegis Rush, Radiant Virtue 2nd, and Demonic Embrace 3rd. Conqueror is the best keystone rune with Triumph, Tenacity, and Last Stand. Roll with Second Wind and Revitalize for secondaries. One bot lane champion who's extremely powerful in meta but is only being played in 1% of games is Swain. Swain bot is so disgusting for this current meta because we are seeing so many melee supports played and way less enchanters. Swain wants a support with strong CC power as it makes landing his E and following with his full combo extremely easy. It's actually pretty insane right now, but Swain has over a 55% win rate when paired up with Thresh, Nautilus, Pyke, Leona, or Rakan. It's just these enchanters who sit back and don't really provide any engaged power like Yuumi, Lulu, and Melio that you want to avoid playing with. Level 6 is where you can really force the issue with Swain bot and completely catch the enemy team off guard. You actually want the enemy jungler to try and gank you at level 6 because turning a 2v3 play is not even all that difficult. It's really all about playing around that R cooldown with Swain. When it's up, the champion is incredible in skirmishes, but when it's down, you gotta play more reserved and just look for catch plays with E. The build you should try to run consists of a Liandry's Rush into Rylai's 2nd and Zanya's 3rd. Conqueror is the keystone rune with Presence of Mind, Tenacity, and Last Stand. Run Conditioning and Overgrowth for secondaries. What if we told you that Yasuo's best role is not actually mid? It's not even top lane, it's ADC. This is the reality we're living in right now, as Yasuo ADC is dominating solo queue, but is not being played all that much. What makes Yasuo bot lane so lethal is his ability to win out in the 2v2 post level 3. Where most Yasuo bot lane players will go wrong though is by playing too aggressive at level 2. The first 2 levels are a bit of a struggle as you just want to sit back, let the enemy shove into you, and preserve as much health as possible. The wave will then be on your side of the lane when you hit level 3, which makes chasing the enemy down across the entire lane super easy. You will have your wind wall at 3, which if used properly should negate at least a few autos of damage from the enemy. Couple this with exhaust, and if the enemy ADC does not have cleanse, your skirmish power at 3 is nearly unbeatable. What takes the Yasuo lane to another level is if you can pair him up with a strong engaged support like Alistar, Rakan, Rell, or even Taric is a really sleeper duo as well. The core build is a Kraken Slayer Rush into Infinity Edge 2nd and Bloodthirster 3rd. Lethal Tempo is the keystone rune with Triumph, Alacrity, and Last Stand. Second Wind is very important in secondary runes to help you sustain the early levels. Just buffed back in 13.15, and the most underrated yet broken support in the entire game is Taliyah. Q base damage was increased and E cooldown reduced, which is added to the lane bully power of the champion. Taliyah is one of the hardest counters to Thresh as her E makes it impossible for him to ever follow up on a hook. That is, as long as you aren't the one who's being hooked. If Thresh tries to hook your ADC, you just throw down E after his hook lands, and there's nothing he can do, as he'll just get stunned if he tries to fly in. It's a little bit more difficult to time your E in lane against picks like Rakan or Nautilus, but later on in the game when you're team fighting around objectives, you can just throw E down preemptively as a zone tool, and it completely nullifies any engaged play from those supports. Not only does Taliyah have very strong laning power, but her roam potential at level 6 is incredible for solo queue. If you see a fight break out in the river, you're going to be the first one to arrive due to to the semi-global from your R. If you want to play a super underrated duo right now, Taliyah with Ashe is pretty insane in the 2v2. If Ashe R hits at level 6, it's a guaranteed kill due to Taliyah being able to follow with her W into E. The full build to run on Taliyah's support is an Everfrost Rush into Rylai's 2nd and Zhonya's 3rd. Dark Harvest is the keystone rune with Cheap Shot, Eyeball Collection, and Treasure Hunter. Roll with Mana Flow and Scorch for secondaries. Holding one of the highest win rates for support over the past few patches and being heavily slept on right now is Poppy. The power of Poppy support is always highly dependent on the meta that we are in, and right now that meta suits her extremely well. Poppy is one of the few champions in the game with a positive win rate against Rakan, and she always does a great job at nullifying Rell, Thresh, Pyke, and Leona. As long as you hold on to your W and don't waste it, those champions are extremely limited in how they can approach fights. Rakan can never dive in with his W, Pyke can never use E, Thresh can never take a hook, and so on. Let's be real though, they're going to try anyways, and when they do, you can counter the engage and take a very free winning trade. The general peel power of Poppy support is actually pretty insane too once she hits level 6. If you're playing into champs who can avoid being hit by your W, you've still got your E and R to help knock enemies away from your carries. The core build to run on Poppy support is an Even Shroud Rush into Deadman's Plate 2nd and Force of Nature 3rd. Aftershock is the optimal keystone rune with Font of Life, Bone Plating, and Unflinching. Grab Hex Flash and Cosmic Insight for secondaries. Alright guys, before we wrap this up, let's tell you a little more about Skill Capped. So, we offer a 5-division rank up guarantee, and think that's a pretty crazy thing to offer. It's like a gym membership guaranteeing you'll get ripped. Your local gym would go bust if they offered that, right? Not us. We've offered this for years because our service really does work. It works so well, in fact, that we're able to produce by far the largest catalog of premium league guides on the internet. We add over 20 videos a week, with over 1,600 guides curated into over 100 courses no one can compare. We've also sent Challenger players into Elo Hell 714 times and counting, where they commentate how to carry live. They also respond to all questions asked. Sign up today for as little as $6.99 a month if you are serious about improving. So that's going to round everything out for this one, guys. Thanks so much for watching. Good luck in solo queue, and we'll see you in the next one.